I'm calling today's regular session, City Council, Common Council regular session on Wednesday, May 19, 2021 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Councilmember Rallo,
Here.
Volin,
Here.
Rosenbarger,
Here.
Scambaluri,
Here.
Sims,
Here.
Flaherty,
Here.
Piedmont Smith,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
and Sandberg.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. The agenda summation is as follows. We have no minutes for approval this evening. Then we'll move down to reports, which is a maximum of 20 minutes set aside for each part of this section. A, council members. B, the mayor and city offices. C, council committees. D, public. Then we'll move on to appointments to boards and commissions. And then we have legislation for second readings and resolutions, beginning with Resolution 21-09, updating Resolution 17-16, and updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, Southwest A Bloomington annexation area. B, Resolution 21-10, updating Resolution 17-17, and updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, Southwest B Bloomington annexation area. C, Resolution 21-11, updating Resolution 17-18, and updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, Southwest C Bloomington annexation area. D, Resolution 21-12, updating Resolution 17-19, and updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, Southeast Bloomington annexation area. E, Resolution 21-13, updating Resolution 17-20, and updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, North Island, Bloomington annexation area. F, Resolution 21-14, updating Resolution 17-21, and updated fiscal plan and policy resolutions for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, Central Island, Bloomington annexation area. G, Resolution 21-15, updating Resolution 17-22, and updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, South Island, Bloomington annexation area. And H, Resolution 21-16, updating Resolution 17-24, and updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, North Bloomington annexation area. I do have a note before I move to the ordinances. The following ordinances were first introduced at the March 29, 2017 regular session. The council may consider technical amendments to each ordinance at tonight's meeting, but will not be able to vote on the ordinances themselves, which will be heard at a public hearing in August. Moving on to ordinance. Ordinance 17-09, an ordinance of the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, annexing territory to the city of Bloomington, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Bloomington, Southwest A Bloomington annexation. J, Ordinance 17-10, an ordinance of the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, annexing territory to the city of Bloomington, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Bloomington, Southwest B Bloomington annexation. Ordinance 17-11, an ordinance of the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, annexing territory to the city of Bloomington, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Bloomington, Southwest C Bloomington annexation. Ordinance 17-12, an ordinance of the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, annexing territory to the city of Bloomington, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Bloomington, Southeast Bloomington annexation. M. Ordinance 17-13, an ordinance of the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, annexing territory to the city of Bloomington, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Bloomington, North Island Bloomington annexation. Ordinance 17-14, an ordinance of the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, annexing territory to the city of Bloomington, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Bloomington, Central Island Bloomington annexation. O. Ordinance 17-15, an ordinance of the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, annexing territory to the city of Bloomington, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Bloomington, South Island Bloomington annexation. P. Ordinance 17-17, an ordinance of the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, annexing territory to the city of Bloomington, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the city of Bloomington, North Bloomington annexation. Then we'll move to legislation for first readings. That is ordinance 21-30 to amend Title 16 of the Bloomington Municipal Code entitled Residential Rental Unit and Lodging Establishment Inspection Program. Then we'll move to additional public comment. A maximum of 25 minutes is set aside for this section. Then we'll deal with matters of council schedule, and then we will entertain adjournment. Where am I? Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to structure deliver. Is this correct, Mr. Parliamentarian, to move forward?
Yes, it is, President Sims. I believe there may have also been a note that you would like to frame the consideration of a motion or the reason to structure
Yes.
debate in the way proposed.
Thank you. The items, this is the verbiage for motion to structure deliberations on the resolution regarding fiscal plans this evening. The items A through H listed under second readings and resolutions are 8 resolutions adopting updated fiscal plans for areas proposed for annexation effective January 1st, 2024. These resolutions are numbered resolutions 21-09 through resolution 21-16. Given the large number of people who may wish to speak to these items, I wish to entertain a motion regarding the structure of the deliberations on these items tonight. Is there a motion? Councilmember Flaherty.
Yes, Mr. President, prior to making such a motion, I did have a question for you as chair. In our previous discussion about structuring debate, we had entertained the possibility of specifying a number of minutes for public comment and or council debate during consideration, but given the relatively low numbers of people in the meeting at present, I wonder if it might be more appropriate to leave open the timeline or the amount of time allotted per member of the public when making this motion to structure debate, and we can make you as chair can make that call at the time of public comment as opposed to as part of this motion, if that works for you as chair.
Thank you very much. And as chair, it works for me just fine. And we will reconsider or consider the amount of public comment time once we determine the number of those who wishing to speak. Councilmember Flaherty.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that the council consider the package of annexation resolutions, updating fiscal plans in the following manner. First, that the city administration will be given time to make a general presentation if it wishes regarding the annexation process as a whole. Second, council members may then ask general questions of the presenters. Third, once council members have finished asking questions about annexation in general, the city administration will have an opportunity to address the resolutions one resolution at a time as they appear on the agenda and as they are introduced. For each resolution after any presentation by the administration, council members may ask questions about the particular resolution. Fourth, once the council has finished receiving presentations and asking questions on the 8 resolutions, then members of the public will have an opportunity to comment on the resolutions. Members of the public may speak once and may speak to as many of the resolutions as they wish during that time. However, comments should pertain to one or more of the resolutions. Fifth, after the public has had an opportunity to comment, council members may ask further questions and hear further answers as necessary before making concluding comments on the resolutions during debate and when considering possibly a motion for adoption. Finally, the council will entertain a motion to adopt one at a time for each of those resolutions.
Second.
Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Flaherty. It's been properly moved in second. Will the clerk please call the roll on this motion, please?
Just a
I'm sorry.
point of order. It is debatable and requires a 2/3 majority. So if there are questions or concerns that members have, we should double check that first.
No, thank you very much. I just assumed that was a given. Before we move further, do we have any comments or questions from council members? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, the motion has been properly moved in second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Rallo,
Yes.
Volin,
Yes.
Rosenbarger,
Yes.
Scambaluri,
Yes.
Sims,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Sandberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That passes 9-0. And we do have some legislation for second reading tonight. Do we have here-
Mr. President,
Yes.
I believe we having no minutes to approve tonight, where we have the reports section of the agenda first as well prior to.
I'm so sorry, no minutes, the agenda summation. I'm sorry, thank you very much. We're down to the report section. Do we have any reports from council members this evening? Councilmember Scambaluri.
Yes, thank you. If I may, I'd like to share screen. Mr. Lucas, do I have that capability?
Yes, you should.
Let's see if that works. Many of us have been following the discussion on Lower Cascades Park for quite some time now, but just by way of quick background, Lower Cascades is in the northern part of the city, located in District 2, but certainly relevant to the entire city. Arguably the most naturalized park, and certainly the oldest park. Its centennial is coming up. Since March of 2020, we have had a pilot project underway for road closure. So this is a quick map, and all of these are online. Old State Road 37 coming through from north to south, the road that turns up to Country Club. This is the section of road that is closed and now limited to bicycle and pedestrian traffic. There has been a lively discussion, certainly in my constituent meetings, in an additional meeting held this past Saturday with park staff. And I want to just take this opportunity to bring some attention to the pilot project, to stress that there are some key decision points coming up and that feedback is essential. You'll see on your screen the website for the project, the link to the survey that you're more than welcome and very much encouraged to fill out, and some key meetings that are coming up in later in June, where we anticipate some decisions will be made regarding Lower Cascades. You are also welcome. It's most critical that you fill out that survey, but you're also more than welcome to share feedback with me directly if you like. My emails are all public and on our website as well. But these are some important discussions that we have coming up on Lower Cascades, and we very much like to hear as many voices as possible in that. I also want to extend my thanks. Paula McDevitt, Director of Parks and Recreation, and Tim Street, who is the Director of the Operations and Development Division, have probably spent more time with District 2 constituents than almost anybody else this year. They've been very gracious with their time in constituent meetings. We're very good and generous with their time this past Saturday as well. And I just want to publicly thank them for being so generous with their time and being so helpful. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Scambolery. Did I see a hand up for Councilmember Smith?
Oh, got on mute. Thank you, President
All right.
Sims. I just wanted to do a brief update on, I'm a member of the Promising Practices group of the Housing Insecurity group that is looking at the issue of homelessness, and there's several subgroups going on. I am with the Promising Practices group, which is led by Emily Pike and Lindsay Smith, with some assistance from Brittany Hurt. So we've been looking at different communities around the country and probably looked at 16 or 17 different municipalities. Some are real close to Bloomington and some are not. We've had about 4 or 5 meetings, and we've been reviewing how they have addressed homelessness, some of the demographics, their population size, what they've been doing. Several have achieved zero homelessness for the veterans in the community. And so we thought that was a notable action that was happening, leading us to believe maybe we can extend some of that to the general population of homelessness. We've reviewed for their tools, their processes, their procedures, funding, and how they've intersected with the government bodies like us and the city. It's been very interesting, and somewhere around May 27th, the subgroups are going to come together and report at large to the homeless insecurity group. And I just wanted everybody to know that we're working on those things, and these other subgroups are, and we've learned a lot of things about how it's working in other communities, how it's not working. And so we hope to bring some of those practices forward in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Boland.
Yes, I just wanted to mention 2 commissions. I want to congratulate, first of all, the Community Advisory and Public Safety Commission that got off the ground yesterday. They had their inaugural meeting. And I wish them luck in their endeavor and hope to help however I can. Secondly, we still have openings for the Redistricting Commission, and depending on the outcome of the items that we're bringing forward tonight, they may have needs to be reformed again in a couple of years. So if there's anyone who is interested in serving on the Redistricting Commission, there's still some openings available, and I urge you to contact the council office if you're interested in applying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Boland. Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
I just wanted to mention that I am also on the Promising Practices Committee of the Housing Insecurity Working Group. And I think that a couple of other council members may be in the Housing Insecurity Working Group on other subcommittees. So just wanted to recognize that there are several of us participating in that process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments from council? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to reports from the mayor or city offices. Okay, seeing none, do we have any reports from council committees? Okay, seeing none, we now go to public comment. I would like to remind members of the public that they may speak on matters of the community concern not listed on tonight's agenda. At one of the two public comment opportunities, citizens may speak at one of these periods, but not both. Speakers are allowed, as of now, 5 minutes. This time allotment may be reduced by the presiding officer if numerous people wish to speak. I see 2 hands raised, so I think we'll go with the 5 minutes.
And just a reminder for members of the public who might wish to comment, you can indicate your desire to do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom or by sending a message to the meeting host via chat. And I do see 2 hands raised at the moment. The first is Greg Alexander, who should be able to comment.
Hello, thank you. My name is Greg Alexander, and I've got some positive sidewalk news for you guys. I was biking northbound on Rogers, just north of 11th Street, and I was getting ready to cross the railroad bridge, and there's a bike lane there. And what did I see in the bike lane but 2 pedestrians? And I could see right away why they were in the bike lane, because the sidewalk had completely covered over with Japanese honeysuckle. And so they had really no choice but to walk in the bike lane. It's better than walking in the car lane, I guess. And I bike in the car lane, you know, and I don't want to be like entitled, like, oh, the city owes us clear sidewalks, but that's a monolithic sidewalk there. And that means that there's no, it's a thin sidewalk to a narrow sidewalk. So if you are on the sidewalk, you very easily get pushed into the road. And that's one of the, you know, about 4 roads in the downtown area that do cross the railroad tracks. So it has a good amount of car traffic, and that road's not calmed even a little bit. So it's high speed car traffic. So it's dangerous when they're walking in the bike lane. But anyway, so I filed a U report 2 weeks ago. And then 1 week ago, city staff and Public Works fixed it. And that's the second time I've seen them do anything like that. So that is a change, and that is a positive change. It's a bummer it took them a week. It's a bummer that they just barely cleared the sidewalk, and that honeysuckle will go right back over the sidewalk again. And it is a narrow sidewalk, you know, but they did it. And that's awesome. My hat's off to them, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Who do we have next, Mr. Lucas?
Next up, I believe, is Jim Shelton, if you'd still like to comment.
Good evening, Council. Jim Shelton with the Chamber, but speaking at the moment on behalf of Court-Appointed Special Advocates, or CASAs. CASAs are volunteers who work with children who are in the court system because their parents have abused or neglected them. CASAs advocate for the children, serve as sort of the constant in their lives, because there's typically a lot of turnover in the Department of Child Services personnel and in service providers. A typical case will go on for several years. We need more people to volunteer to do this. The last I heard, we had some 40 children waiting for a CASA who were in the court system. The CASA office has reached out to us, active CASAs, and asked us to consider taking on another case in order to reduce this backlog. And then for the public, if you would care to try to help with this problem, we have a training upcoming in just a few weeks. It'll start June 7th, run through the 30th of June. It'll be via Zoom, Monday evenings, Wednesday evening, Thursday evenings from 5:30 to 8:30. If this is something that you've been thinking about, now would be a good time to do it. You can go to monroecountycasa.org, click on the volunteer link, and get a lot more detailed information. And you'll find that you can fill out the application to serve as a volunteer right online and then submit it. We need people to help these children. As I said, they've done nothing wrong. Their parents are the problems. Typically, well, at least half of them are 5 years or younger. So they need somebody to advocate for them. That's the job of the CASA. Judge Galvin and Judge Harvey have the juvenile cases, and both very much value what they hear as to the status of things from the CASA. The children will have been removed from their parents' care because they're not safe there anymore and will be typically in foster care or perhaps with a relative. And the CASA's job is to see how the children are doing, be able to report that to the court, and see how the parents are doing. The parents will have been given a number of things that they have to do in order to be able to be reunited with their children. And the CASA helps monitor how this is doing, how they're doing, and keeps the court informed of that. There'll typically be a hearing every 3 months, although COVID's made that kind of crazy. And at that time, you would write a report and fill the judge in on how you see things are going. So if you can't do it that fast, if you haven't been thinking about it, you probably can't decide that this fast. The next training will be in October, and I promise you we'll be still needing CASA volunteers because this is a problem that just keeps happening. So please think about it. You can call the office at 333-2272 and talk to a staff member. You might want to friend the Monroe County CASA office on Facebook, and then you'll be seeing announcements about other opportunities to learn information and help you decide if maybe this is a volunteer opportunity for you. It's very rewarding. It's great when the children are either reuniting with their parents or have been adopted. And it's something that we really need people to do to help the children and to help our community be strong. So thank you for the opportunity to spread this word.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Shelton. Do we have anyone else, Mr. Lucas?
I did receive one comment over chat that came in from Dave Vaskins with the B Squared Beacon. The comment reads, I have a note on the accessibility of this meeting so far. Councilmember Scamboluri showed a great slide on the Lower Cascades Park closing. It was in large type, it was clean and crisp. Here's what Councilmember Scamboluri said. You'll see on your screen the website for the project, the link to the survey that you're more than welcome, very much encouraged to fill out, and some key meetings that are coming up later in June where we anticipate some decisions will be made regarding Lower Cascades. The words came from the auto transcript, so that's also a plus. But ask yourself, how accessible was the information on the screen to someone with low or no vision? For future reference, it's a good idea to actually say aloud the website links and the specific dates that are on the screen. Screen readers aren't going to pick that up for a blind person. City staff member Michael Shermis organized a 3-hour meeting recently where topics like that were covered. I'd encourage council members and council staff to review that recording. And that is the end of the comments, and I don't believe I see any additional requests for comment.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank Mr. Askins for his comment. Okay, seeing no more public commenters, do we have any appointments to boards or commissions this evening? Okay, seeing none, we do have legislation ready for second reading tonight. Councilmember Flaherty.
Yes, that's right. And I believe based on the motion we adopted unanimously earlier, if the administration has a general overview presentation, and if there are general questions, we would actually entertain those before sequentially introducing the resolution. So that would be appropriate at this time, I believe.
Thank you very much. Okay, didn't know if we were going to read it for all the resolutions that, or as a group, but that makes sense. Do we have here, I see Mayor Hamilton. You now have the floor, sir. You care to present?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate the chance to be with you tonight. Thank you, council members, for your service and your attention. Tonight, we are asking you to resume the city's proposed annexation process that was begun 4 years ago. Tonight, we will outline resolutions to update the fiscal plans for each of the 8 areas adjacent to the city proposed for annexation, and then amendments to update the previously adopted annexation ordinances. Tonight involves no final votes, but rather is picking up where we left off in 2017 to update information. a step that is required because of the state legislature's precipitous interruption midway through that orderly process 4 years ago. As most are aware, a few months ago, the Indiana Supreme Court ruled that that interruption violated our state constitution, illegally targeting one community and interfering in our ability to manage our affairs. That decision by the court allows us to be here tonight to resume the process from the point at which it was interrupted. Annexation is a legal process to adjust a city's borders to reflect changes in population and development. We've done it many, many times in Bloomington's long history. Indeed, almost everyone living in Bloomington today lives on property that was once outside city limits, that was at some point annexed into the city. On our website, you can see detailed maps summarizing decades of annexation since 1950. Regular annexation has been essential to Bloomington's thriving city. It has enhanced the efficient service delivery and the long-term comprehensive planning that support the high quality of life enjoyed in our community. Now, unfortunately, 17 years ago in the previous administration, Bloomington's pattern of regular annexations came to a halt. A generation of Bloomington kids have been born and will finish high school without any updating of our borders. But population and development have continued very actively for the past 17 years, including in these areas proposed for annexation. The residential density of these areas next to our boundaries, among other attributes, makes them often indistinguishable from the city. Put another way, our existing city boundaries are out of date. They no longer represent the on-the-ground realities of our community. And if a growing, thriving community doesn't keep our borders current, then disparities, inefficiencies, and imbalances arise. The proposed annexation will help right-size Bloomington, if you will, providing an urban level of services for urbanized areas and allowing our community of households and businesses to share and chart a common future. Now, by resuming tonight the right sizing of our city, bringing urbanized and urbanizing areas formally into our city, we are planning to provide the services appropriate to such areas and their residents. Those services should and will include new and improved parks and recreation options, appropriate planning and development regulations, incentives for affordable housing and increased mobility options, as well as essential public safety services, curbside recycling, street plowing and sweeping and upgrades where needed, support for the arts and social services and more. And of course, right sizing will allow more of our neighbors direct involvement in our self-governance through voting, participation on boards and commissions, and running for office, to have our whole community determine our future together. And the evolution and growth that we've seen in these 8 proposed areas has long been anticipated and planned for. In 2012, the county's comprehensive plan highlighted the bulk of these areas as the intended, quote, Bloomington urbanizing area, close quote. And city and county governments long coordinated the planning of these areas in an agreement that established the, quote, areas intended for annexation, quote, or known as IFA. And even before the IFA, city and county collaborated on the 2-mile fringe, comprising areas close to city boundaries that were likely to become part of the city in the future through annexation. And despite this anticipation and planning, very few of the areas intended for annexation have in fact been annexed, while the urbanizing march has continued in steady pace. In a moment, Corporation Counsel Philippa Guthrie will discuss the legal process, and our consultant with Reedy Financial will present the updated fiscal plans, which detail the city's commitment to providing services to the annexation areas, the costs to the city of providing additional services, the manner for paying for the services, and the projected impacts to other taxing units and property owners, including detailed parcel impact reports. It is important to note as well that the annexation is proposed to become effective in 2024, with property taxes payable the following year in 2025, a timeline designed to allow adequate transition time. As we pick up where we left off 4 years ago, thank you for your stewardship of our thriving, growing community. Thank you for continuing the long-standing practice of adjusting our boundaries as our population grows to assure a healthy, inclusive, and high quality of life community for everyone. I'll be happy to answer questions as they arise, and I'm now going to hand it over to Ms. Guthrie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. Good evening, I'm Philippa Guthrie. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. As the mayor mentioned, I will be addressing primarily the legal process for this evening and beyond. We began this annexation in 2017 in February, and we're halfway through the process when it was halted by the legislature. And as you all know, the Supreme Court ruled in December that it was an unconstitutional action. So we are picking back up from the point at which we left off. The city is proposing the same 8 areas that were up for annexation or being considered at the time that the annexation process was halted, with very few changes at this time, which we will discuss when we get into the ordinances more fully and the resolutions. And those areas are identified in the overall map that was provided as Exhibit A to my memo in your materials. So by the time the process was stopped in 2017, the annexation statutes required us to take certain actions that we had already taken. We had gone halfway through. We had held 6 public outreach meetings, adopted the fiscal plans and introduced ordinances for the proposed areas. And we had scheduled and noticed, but not yet held the public hearing. We're asking you to do 2 things tonight. First, since 4 years has elapsed, some things have changed. So the fiscal plans that were sitting out there and had been introduced and adopted need to be amended. There's a resolution for each area in which we are asking you to adopt the amended, updated fiscal plan for each area. These plans describe the services that the city will provide to the respective annexation areas, and the associated costs and impacts for the city and the residents being annexed. We are also presenting you with annexation ordinances. These were introduced in 2017. The amendments to those are technical in nature and include changing the date on which annexation would take effect. They previously had January 1 of 2020, and we are updating that to January 1 of 2024. The delayed effective date, by the way, gives the city time to prepare for providing the services to the annexed areas, and also, as the mayor mentioned, means the tax effects will not be seen by residents or overlapping government units or others until 2025. In addition, Area 1A needs amendment because several parcels needed to be removed from that area. The reason is these are Cook parcels. Cook Group Incorporated owns them, and it is because Cook and the city signed a 15-year agreement in lieu of annexation in October 2017, under which Cook agreed to make annual payments to the city in exchange for the city not annexing the parcels in that area. That agreement, by the way, was approved by the council. Please note that your actions tonight do not mean that the fiscal plans are finalized or that the annexations are completed. By adopting the amended fiscal plans, you will simply be acknowledging that the plans detail the administration's commitment to providing services if the areas are ultimately annexed. And amending the ordinances just brings them into accord with the updated plans. Before voting on the ordinances, the council must hold a public hearing to receive public comment, and that is scheduled for August 4th. The council must then hold a final meeting, which is scheduled for September 15th, at which you may vote on the ordinances. So again, tonight we are simply resuming the legal process and asking you to update the documents. Over the next few months, we will continue to discuss the areas and their corresponding fiscal plans, and we fully expect that there may be further refinement and amendment to both annexation areas and fiscal plans. Annexation is designed to be fluid and allow opportunities for reevaluation based on public input and new information. And indeed, since the maps and fiscal plan were made available, members of the public have already identified several things that will require adjustment. The plan may continue to change until the final public meeting when the council's vote has been taken. I would mention two caveats that Attorney Stephen Lucas also addressed in his summary memo. First, the annexation area should only be reduced in size, not enlarged. And second, amendment to the ordinances will require consideration of adjustments to the fiscal plans. So staff will have to have them with enough lead time to review them and be able to adjust those plans where appropriate before you take any final vote. Thank you for continuing to address this proposal. The administration welcomes the opportunity to work with you on these important plans for Bloomington's future. I'm here and happy to answer any questions after the other speakers, and there are other staff members here as well, Jeff Underwood, Mike Rooker, and Steve Unger, who is our outside annexation counsel. And I'd now like to introduce Tim Stricker from Reedy, who will be presenting you with information on the plans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for that introduction, Philippa. As she said, I'm Tim Stricker with Reedy Financial Group. Thank you for having me this evening. Let me go ahead and share my screen because I do have a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so this is technically annexation proposal version 4.0. The things we'll be discussing tonight are the brief history, where we left off pretty much in May of 2017, and then the fiscal plan, what it is, the current annexation situation and environment, the mean and median taxpayer impacts, the overlapping unit impacts, the property tax comparison, and some closing remarks. So a brief history here. As I said, and as others have said before me, the city did finish the version 3.0 of the annexation proposal, which was publicly released in May of 2017. Soon after that, all of the city's process was halted by the special legislation. And that special legislation, I know I'm repeating this, was deemed unconstitutional by the Indiana Supreme Court. I won't go into too much detail here because it's been mentioned, but version 3.0 did have actually 9 separate annexation areas or 9 separate annexations. The only difference in version 4.0 is that area 6, the northeast area, has been removed from consideration. So what is the fiscal plan? Really, the fiscal plan is the city's best foot forward. It's the ongoing effort to present the impacts of the annexation in the best possible way it can with the facts it has as the information becomes available. There are really 3 main questions or principles that go into the fiscal plan. It's what are the current services that we're providing to residents that are already incorporated with the city? what do we need to do or have to extend those services in a manner consistent with the services that are already being provided to the annexed areas? And what are the impacts to overlapping units, the city, and taxpayers for doing so? So what has changed since May of 2017? As I said before, Area 6 is no longer part of the proposal. The financial projections had to be updated because, frankly, using information from 2015 and 2016 would have been outdated information. So when the model was built, a combination of 2020 and 2021 certified data was used when possible. Since that time, in the aggregate, from 2016 to 2021, assessed value has actually grown by 18% on average in all the annexation areas. So this, in combination with the property tax rate changes, pretty much completely changed the financial projections, at least from a dollar perspective. One of the other big changes is that the Monroe Fire Protection District continues to merge with more townships. Now, essentially what this has done is the property tax rate in 2020 for the Monroe Fire Protection District was $1630. And then in 2021, it went up to $3890. It's about a 139% increase. This statute that's referenced here also dictates that annexed territory within the Monroe Fire Protection District, that's the people that are already receiving fire protection from the Monroe Fire Protection District, have to remain in the district, which means the city will not be providing fire services to those areas, which essentially boils down to Benton, those people that are in Benton, Bloomington, Perry, and Van Buren townships. The city will be providing fire protection to Richland and Salt Creek Township annexation areas. And it's estimated that the city could do it at a fire rate of around 1250. So here's just a brief overview of the assessed value, because I discussed how the assessed value went up from 2016 to 2021. So Benton Township, we went from around 239 million in 2016 to 284 million in 2021, which is about a 19% increase. Bloomington Township went from 305 million in 2016 to 353 million in 2021, or a 16% increase. The Perry Township Taxing District went from 693 million in 2016 to 871 million in 2021, or a 26% increase. Richland Township went from 441 million to 532 million, or a 21% increase. Salt Creek Township went from 129 million in 2016 to 152 million in 2021, or a 17% increase. Van Buren Township went from 548 million in 2016 to 650 million in 2021, or a 19% increase. Bloomington City, Bloomington Township went from 1.17 billion in 2016 to 1.35 billion in 2021, or a 16% increase. Bloomington City, Perry Township went from 2.08 billion in 2016 to 2.49 billion in 2021, or a 20% increase. Bloomington City, Richland Township went from 33.7 million in 2016 to 41.2 million in 2021, or a 22% increase. And then finally, Bloomington City, Van Buren Township went from 107.4 million in 2016 to 112.2 million in 2021, or a 5% increase. And again, that is in the aggregate. That is not every year. That is simply, it was this in 2016, it's now this in 2021, and those are the aggregate percent increases. So on average, that's an 18% increase. Next, we'll discuss the mean and median taxpayer impacts. So this first chart here, if you see there on the left, you will see the annexation areas. And then somewhat in the middle or in the next area, this is all residential properties only. So this is anyone with a homestead deduction, which is their primary residence. And then after that, we show the percentage of mean attributable to just the annexation. So what that means is because we had 18% growth from 2016 to 2021, since we're projecting this out to 2024, it was only fair to show some assessed value growth from now until the time when people will be paying these taxes, which is 2025. And then the last section there shows the impacts to the 65 and over circuit breaker properties. So for area 1A, which is the southwest annexation area, the mean is about a $640 increase in annual property taxes. The median is $605. And the percentage of that that's attributable to annexation only, if you net out the 12% growth, is 81%. And then the impact to the only over 65 circuit breaker properties, the mean is actually a $74 decrease, and the median is a $78 decrease. For area 1B, which is the southwest annexation area, the mean is a $677 increase, and the median is a $671 increase. 84% of this area is attributable to annexation. And then for the only 65 and over circuit breaker properties, we have a $72 decrease on average. And then the mean is a $79 decrease. For area 1C, which is still the southwest annexation area, we have an average increase of $282. And sorry, I forgot to mention this. This is actually the annual property tax increase. The median is $292. The percentage of this area that's attributable to only the annexation is 82%. The 65 and over average is decreasing by $89, and the median is also $89. For area 2, which is the southeast annexation area, the average increase is 1,171. The mean is 1,049. The percentage in this area attributable to annexation is 82%. The mean reduction of property tax is $60 for the over 65 properties. And the median is a reduction of $81. For area 3, which is the North Island annexation area, we have a $301 average increase, a $273 median. 79% of that, of the mean, is attributable to annexation. The average decrease to the over 65 properties is $83, and the median is $82. For area 4, which is the Central Island, the average increase is $481. The median is $412. The percentage of this area that's attributable to annexation is 86%. The average decrease for the over 65 properties is $73, and the median is an $85 decrease. For area 5, which is the South Island annexation area, we show an average of $698 increase, a median of $669. 86% of the mean is attributable to annexation. The average decrease to the over 65 circuit breaker properties is $87, and the median is also $87. For area number 7, which is the North Annexation area, the average increase is $585. The median is $434. The percentage of the mean that is attributable to annexation is 78%. The average decrease to the over 65 properties is $33, and the median is also $33. For all annexation areas combined, the average increase is $604. The average median is $520. 83% of the mean is attributable to annexation. The average decrease to the over 65 properties is $71, and the median is $82, an $82 reduction. This next table is the same principle. It's just all properties are included. It should be your residential properties, your industrial, everything, commercial. So for area 1A, which again is the Southwest Annexation area, the average increase is $1,556. The median is $568. And the percentage of the average attributable to annexation is 83%. Area 1B, which is still the Southwest Annexation area, the average increase is $842. The median is $688. And the percentage of the average attributable to annexation is 85%. For area 1C, the average increase is $319. The median is $317. And the percentage of the average attributable to annexation is 81%. For area 2, the average is $1,319 increase. The median is $952, and the percentage of the mean attributable to annexation is 84%. Area 3, the average increase is $464. The median is $236, and the percentage of the mean attributable to annexation is 79%. For area 4, the average increase is $572. The median is $369, and the percentage of the average attributable to annexation is 86%. For area 5, the average increase is $4,082. The median is $565, and the percentage of the average attributable to annexation is 86%. For area 7, the average increase is $633. The median is $28, and the percentage of the average attributable to annexation is 82%. For all areas combined, the average increase is $1,223. The median is $466, and the percentage of the average attributable to annexation is 84%. So this table shows the impacts to overlapping units. So we'll start, and it reads from left to right. So it's the unit, the total revenue, which is based on a combination of 2020 and 2021, the projected circuit breaker increase or decrease post annexation. And when I say circuit breaker, I mean property tax caps. The 2021 certified property tax levy, and then the property tax caps increase as a percentage of the property tax levy, and then other allocation adjustments due to annexation. And then we project out the levy, since really the annexation will not be effective on the tax rules until 2025. There's 4 years of maximum levy growth. And then we show the combination of the tax caps and the other allocation adjustments from annexation and compare that to the levy growth, which is the net effect there at the end. So for Monroe County, we're showing an increase to the tax caps of $269,000 approximately, compared to the 2021 certified property tax levy of $31.4 million. So based on that information, the property tax cap increase to the county is around 1%. For other allocation adjustments, we're showing a $1.59 million adjustment to Monroe County. And then when we compare the levy growth over the 4 years, the county will have roughly $5.6 million in maximum levy in 2025. And then you net out the $1.859 million allocation adjustment from annexation. The net effect is a positive $3.76 million for the county. For the town of Ellettsville, there is no property tax cap increase. So again, there's no increase on the property tax cap as a percentage of levy either. The city will receive some of the CBET and excise tax that goes to Ellettsville as a simple matter of the way the state calculates the pool of money among all units. And then if we grow Ellettsville's levy over the 4 years, we see a levy of $349,381, and then net out the property tax caps and the other allocation adjustments for a net of $318,171 for Ellettsville. For Steinsville, there is no increase to the property tax caps, which means there's no percentage increase. And then roughly $223 of allocation adjustments for the reasons previously discussed. If we grow the levy over the 4 years, that's $1,905 for the town of Steinsville. Subtract out the $223 of annexation and allocation adjustments for a net effect of $1,683. For Monroe County Schools, there's a property tax cap increase of roughly $403,000, which again is about a 1% increase when comparing it to their property tax levy. Then there's roughly $128,325 of other allocation adjustments for the reasons previously discussed. When we grow Monroe County Schools levy over the 4 years, we end up with a levy of around $7.7 million. We net out the $532,000 roughly of allocation adjustments for a net effect of $7.16 million. For Richland Bean Blossom Community Schools, there's roughly a $24,000 increase to the property tax caps, which is such a low percentage that it really doesn't even show up here as compared to their property tax levy. And then we grow out their levy over the 4 years, which we arrive at a levy of $1.9 million. Then we net back out the $47,000 allocation adjustments for annexation to arrive at a net positive of $1.85 million. Next, we have the Monroe County Public Library impacts. There will be roughly a $62,000 increase to property tax caps, which is around 1% of the property tax levy. And then when we grow their levy over the 4 years, we end up with a levy of around $1.3 million. We net out the $179,000 of allocation adjustments from annexation for a net positive of $1.1 million. For Benton Township, there's actually a circuit breaker property tax cap decrease. which really means they will net more of their property tax levy. There is a roughly $5,000 impact from other allocation adjustments due to the calculations we discussed before. So when we net the property tax cap decrease against the other allocation adjustments and compare that to the levy growth, we end up with a $61,484 positive for Benton Township. For Bloomington Township, the same thing is happening. We're actually decreasing the property tax caps by around 5% compared to their 2021 property tax levy. So then we grow the property tax levy in 2021 over the 4 years, which gives us a levy of about $57,000. We net that against the roughly $29,000 allocation adjustments, and we arrive at a positive of $44,481. For Perry Township, we're projecting approximately a $12,000 increase to the property tax caps. The property tax caps as a percentage of the levy for 2021, the increase is around 2%. And then there's roughly $22,000 of other allocation adjustments. When we net that against the levy growth, or the total levy of $134,000 against the $34,000 impact, we have a net positive of $99,825. For Richland Township, there's a property tax cap increase of just under $1,000, $828, or about 0.08% of the property tax levy in 2021. Then there's roughly another $16,000 of allocation adjustments due to annexation. Netting this against the levy of $182,448, we come up to a net positive of $165,449. For Salt Creek Township, we're again showing a property tax cap decrease of $170, or about negative 0.08% of the property tax levy in 2021. And there is a $3,404 adjustment due to annexation. So netting this against the $39,000 projected levy in 2025, there's a positive $35,808 impact to Salt Creek Township. For Van Buren Township, we're showing a property tax cap increase of around $800, or 0.2% of the property tax levy in 2021. Then another approximate $51,000 of adjustments from annexation. Netting this against the levy increase, or the total levy in 2025, projected at $78,401, we're showing a net positive of $26,800. For the Monroe Fire Protection District, we are projecting a property tax cap increase of $290,000 approximately, or 3% of the property tax levy in 2021. And then another approximate $69,000 of allocation adjustments. Netting this against the 2025 projected levy of $1.65 million, we come up with a positive of $1.29 million. For Monroe County Solid Waste District, we are projecting a property tax cap increase of $18,691, or approximately 1% of the property tax levy in 2021. Another $6,371 adjustment from allocation adjustments. And then netting this against the projected property tax levy in 2025, we're showing a $365,560 positive. Now, it is worth noting down here at the bottom, there is no guarantee that the maximum levy growth will continue to be 4.2% every year. However, it is worth noting that it's all but guaranteed in 2022 to be at least 4.2%. because there's actually a large growth year being added on to the 6-year average calculation. Next, we have the property tax rate comparisons. So it's important to note that these graphs are based on the highest incorporated taxing district rate for each city that's being displayed. And really, these graphs are a comparison of similar cities to Bloomington. So the highest property tax rate city is Gary at $8.81. The second highest is South Bend at $5.98. The third highest is Muncie.
Tim, I know you may be reading this so everyone can hear it, but I want, in interest of time, maybe you can summarize these charts just in a quicker way as you go through rather than each line. And we'll make them all available to everybody who wants to look at them. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so to summarize, Bloomington is really the second lowest rate among all comparable cities at $2.54. The lowest is Fishers. And the reason why this is important is because even post-annexation, Bloomington is still going to have one of the lowest taxing district rates in the aggregate, on average, of all these comparable cities. So closing remarks, Monroe Fire Protection District does have a significant impact on financial projections. Every time, at least historically, that multiple townships join, the property tax rate has increased. There's no guarantee this will continue, but there's no guarantee it won't continue. Again, current legislation does prevent the city from providing fire protection to the areas currently incorporated with Monroe Fire Protection District. The property tax cap impacts would be roughly 83% lower if the city was able to, and it is willing to, provide fire protection to all areas, all annexation areas. There would also be a better ISO rating for residents, which should be an insurance savings, and there would be enhanced fire services for taxpayers. And the city could do it at a rate of 12.5 cents versus 38.9 cents. Some townships' tax cap burdens should decrease, which we showed that in the previous charts. The counties, it may look like the county's impact is kind of a big number, but really the service area will also decrease to offset those impacts. Richland and Salt Creek will have reduced fire protection costs to offset their impacts. It's also worth noting that the most financially vulnerable, which is homeowners over 65 and those with disabilities, are substantially protected from property tax increases. Also, ag parcels will have no property tax or tax cap impacts. And again, just to reiterate, post-annexation district property tax rates will still be among the lowest of comparable cities across Indiana. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stricker. Who do we have next as a presenter?
That's all we have from the city for the introduction section. Happy to answer questions, I think, unless I'm incorrect. Philippa or Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's all we have.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you. As per our motion earlier, we'll now move to questions from councilors, and we'll start with Councilmember Volan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for the presentation. Very interesting update. I have a couple of questions. The first is, let's see if I have this written down right. If the fiscal plans need to be reduced because some portion of an area gets cut in the course of our annexation deliberations, do we have to amend the resolutions that we might adopt tonight because they reflect the fiscal plan changes? Does that make sense?
I think I understand what you're asking. If you make a change to an annexation area, yes.
Right, if we cut some part of it out instead
Yeah,
of.
we would have to adjust the fiscal plan and then you would adopt an updated fiscal plan.
So in other words, the adoption of any resolution tonight is not really binding. It just, it kicks off the contemplation of the ordinances.
Right, exactly.
Okay, and so if through some action we decide to reduce some area of, some part of an area intended for annexation, we have to adopt a new resolution or update the one that we're considering tonight.
I guess I would ask
Maybe
Stephen
Mr. Lucas
Lucas
can
that
answer.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Lucas is there.
Well, that may also be a question for Steve Unger. My understanding would be that we would update a new resolution, given that, excuse me, we have already adopted fiscal plans back in 2017 via resolution. And so what we're doing tonight is updating updated fiscal plans with these new resolutions. And my understanding is that any future updates to the fiscal plans may also need to be approved by a new resolution. I don't know if Steve Unger has anything to add or any corrections there.
No, I would agree. I would also say it also can depend on how significant of the changes you would make to the area are, to the areas. If they were small changes, it may be that we would not have to necessarily update the fiscal plan, but certainly if there were significant changes, we would want to make updates, probably using, I would expect the same process that you're using tonight, by adopting a resolution, amending the prior resolutions with a new fiscal plan. And we can do that up until we adopt the final annexation ordinances.
So the thing is, we would be amending an annexation ordinance in order to remove some area out of it. Then we'd have to go back and create a new resolution to reflect the new fiscal plan for that area. Is that would only happen after the annexation ordinance that was amended is adopted. Is that right?
No, well, and I'll defer certainly to the council in terms of the process they want to go through to amend it. I think that's why one of the requests that we've had in looking at this is that we have an idea before we get to final adoption or consideration of final adoption in September of what these areas are going, what we think they're going to look like in final form, so that there is an opportunity to prepare those resolutions, updated resolutions and updated fiscal plans. What I would typically expect would be that when you get to that final adoption meeting of the ordinances, you would be, before you adopt the final ordinances, you would adopt the final versions of the fiscal plans and then adopt the final versions of the ordinances, or vice versa, adopt the final versions and then immediately at that meeting adopt the final versions of the fiscal plan.
Okay, well, the thing is that any changes to a given annexation area in one of the ordinances would be amended by us in the course of considering the ordinance, not the resolution. So until the ordinance comes forward, what's our mechanism? Are we simply, are we taking some kind of straw vote as a council to say we want to remove this street or that block? This is the part I don't get. What's the mechanism for amending an area?
I think I can speak to that, and Philip and Steve can add to this if they'd like to. The August 4th public hearing will be an opportunity for the council to receive not only public comment, but also to discuss those ordinances. And then following that date, the council may need to think about scheduling an additional meeting to take up and consider any amendments to the ordinances in advance of that September 15th date that we've come up with for a final vote, for this very reason, so that the council can discuss and possibly vote on any changes to the areas with enough lead time for the consultants to update the fiscal plans as a result.
So I guess the answer then is we're introducing the ordinances tonight, but they're being held over a 5-month period, a several month period, and during that time we can amend.
The ordinances were introduced back in 2017.
That's right. Sorry.
They are being amended, potentially amended tonight. And then, yes, there are several months ahead where the county could consider amendments to the ordinances up until the vote. But as Mr. Unger mentioned, depending on the scope of the change, it may be difficult to then update the fiscal plans, following any amendments.
Thank you. That answers my question. I'll hold my other question for other members to speak.
And if I might just jump in, Michael Rooker, City Attorney for the city. I did also want to mention it's not just the fiscal plans that need to be updated in the event of a change. The legal descriptions also need to be rewritten, and that takes time as well. So there are several reasons why we need some lead time to make sure everything is legal.
Right. So, I mean, with that, we should expect that those amendments would be basically the second half of August. That's about the time that we need to shoot for in order for them to be prepared and deliberated over by the council, like between mid-August or August 4th and September 15th, right?
I think that's correct. I'm seeing some head nods, and I know we also have our annual departmental budget hearing scheduled for, I believe, the week of August 23rd. So that's just another wrinkle to add in here. But I think your time frame is correct as I understand it.
Very good. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Thank you. Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes, could Mr. Stricker put the chart of revenue impact on overlapping units back on the screen, please? I have a question about that.
One moment.
Thank you. So, yes. So I just wanted to walk through the first line here to make sure I understand what this is telling us. So Monroe County impacts. So they're going to lose $269,000 because of the circuit breaker. Then other revenue sources will lead to a further reduction in revenues for the county of $1,590,815. Is that right?
Yeah, it gets, reduction of revenue is kind of a sort of unfair way of saying it. Yes and no. It's really, you're limiting the county's growth from then on forward. There's still, which is why we put the property tax levy for 2025 in there.
So what does that column mean then? Projected other allocation adjustments? If it's
those are the adjustments due to the way that the state calculates certain pools of money. So like your financial institutions tax, your excise, your CBET, the MBH distribution.
Right. So it's a reduced amount of revenue for the county.
And that's, yes, correct.
Okay. So then the second to last column on the right, then we see the net impact is about 1.8 million.
Yes.
And then in this chart, you have the projected levy increase, and it looks very rosy. So, hey, the net impact is they're getting $3.7 million. But isn't that just, it's 3.7 million where it could have been 3.7 plus 1.8, right? I mean, it just the way this is presented seems a bit disingenuous.
Yes, it's really to show the limitation on the growth from that point forward when the annexation is effective. Yeah, but yes, that's a fair statement.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
If you don't mind, you can clear the screen, please. Thank you. Further questions from council? Councilmember Rollo.
Perhaps for Mr. Lucas. Mr. Lucas, how long could council extend debate on this topic? I mean, we're aiming for September, but
The time, oh, and Mr. Unger may be able to jump in here.
Yeah, and I can maybe answer that. It's important to remember that annexation the process is very specifically outlined by statute. Once we hold the public hearing, and currently set for August 4th, you have a window of time between 30 and 60 days after that public hearing in which you could adopt the annexation ordinances. If you did not adopt them in some form in that 30 to 60 day window, you would have to restart the process over again if you were going to consider those annexation areas again.
I see. So we would have until mid-October, or early October?
Correct, assuming the public hearing is held on August 4th as currently planned.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Rallo. Did I see your hand, Councilmember Smith? Okay, and then Councilmember Flaherty after that. Go ahead, Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, President Sim. Shall I ask a couple of questions, or you want me to ask one and then let my colleagues go?
I think it's fine. You can ask a couple.
Okay. Mr. Stryker, I'm going to ask you to explain a little bit about if somebody's over 65 and their their tax is actually going to go down 60 or 80 bucks, whatever. If you want, you can put that screen up. If you don't want, that's fine. But explain to me how that works and how those folks that are senior citizens or persons with disability, how is that gonna happen?
Yeah, so get my video on. It's really a function of a couple of things. It is the assessed value growth assumption that we put in there, which is 12%. And then the way that the over 65, both the AV and the credits and the property tax cap is calculated.
Okay, so that didn't help me at all. Explain it, try to help me out so that myself can understand it and somebody listening can understand it too. So if they're 65 or they're 68 and they're in the areas that are maybe going to be annexed, how are they not subject to the increases?
So this is Mike Rooker, city attorney. I'm going to jump in. To be eligible for the over 65 circuit breaker credit, there are 4 requirements. Number 1, you have to be over the age of 65. Number 2, you have to be occupying the property in question as your primary residence. Number 3, the assessed value of the property has to be $200,000 or less. And number 4, you have to meet certain adjusted gross income requirements. Those requirements vary depending on whether or not you file your taxes jointly or as an individual. So it's designed to protect seniors who are on a fixed income and live in sort of an average priced home when they're in the retirement years from being subject to excessive property taxes. If you meet all of those requirements, and Mr. Stricker, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the circuit breaker for property tax purposes kicks in to prevent any increase in property taxes year over year greater than 2%. So when you take into account the other factors Mr. Stricker mentioned, like growth in assessed value, and in addition to that, savings in certain other areas. For example, your wastewater rates will go down when you come into the city because there are differential rates for municipal and non-municipal residents for wastewater. Those savings will actually create a net savings to individuals who are eligible for that circuit breaker credit. Does that make sense?
It does. So do I understand you to say that their tax may go up, but some of their service charges may go down, so that there's a net savings, is what we're saying?
Correct.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Correct. Yes, which I was going to expound upon that. So thank you.
Sorry for interrupting.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Rooker. I really do appreciate that because it does get confusing. And explain a little bit, Mr. Stryker, when we're talking about the ability, the levy is 4.2%. That is the assessed value increase. Talk about that assumption a little bit for me, so that I understand what that means in relation to the taxes.
Yeah, so there's actually two different assumptions there that you mentioned. The first is the 12% increase to the net assessed value, and that is a blanket increase across all parcels. Which really the reason for that was because of the calculation that we showed earlier, the 18% growth on average across all those impacted areas in the same 4-year time period. So we said conservatively, this is probably going to go up around 12% from 2020 of the base year to 2025. Now, is it guaranteed to do that? No, there's no guarantee it's going to do that.
And that's the assessed value. And if we had a 2008 housing crash, then the 4.2%, that would be a false assumption at that point.
Yes, and it's really going to be a delay because it's a 6-year average calculation. So you're going to have 3 or 4, actually at this point, 5 years of very good growth across the statewide. So it would take probably 2 or 3 years for that percentage to come considerably down from where it is, from the 4.2%.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Stryker. I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Flaherty.
Thank you, and thank you all for presenters for presenting. I had some similar questions about the assumptions underlying average levy growth of 4.2% and a 12% net increase in assessed value. I'm not sure. I guess, was there consideration given or calculations done to consider a range, a conservative, a middle of the road, and a liberal set of assumptions for both levy growth and assessed value growth or increase assumptions? And if not, is that possible? And I'm not sure if it necessarily affects the overall picture, but maybe if anybody could comment on how a conservative, a middle of the road, and a liberal set of assumptions for those things might affect the overall picture.
I can opine on that. Essentially what it would do.
Before you do that, I'm going to be a layman here a little bit just to make sure we're all kind of on the same page, and then Tim certainly talk about that. So the assessed value growth is a pure projection of what will happen. I think that's a relatively conservative projection, as you heard, comparing an 18% 4-year growth and projecting instead a 12% 4-year growth. That totally depends upon the actual on the ground assessed value that happens in our community over the next 4 years. And I think that's been conservative. The levy growth is done, it's done by the state in determining through a formula based on the past 6 years of non-farm income, et cetera, what the levy growth will be that they then tell the community. It's only partially based on reality in the world. And that projected levy growth of 4.2% is also relatively conservative, as Tim mentioned, because we know that we're dropping off some lower years and picking up some higher years, at least for a little while. And it's projecting what the state will say the levy growth allowed is. Those two numbers, then it's only math that determines the property tax rate. It's dividing the levy into the assessed value that gets us the rate. But I just want to be, one is a projection that we can make, the other is just trying to predict what the state will do in its mathematical calculations. Back to you, Tim.
Thank you for the thoughts, and I look forward to Mr. Stricker's answer as well. I add just a small bit there based on what Mayor Hamilton said about dropping off some lower growth in income years from the 6-year rolling average. I don't know offhand how that 6-year window lines up with the current time. So if we're adding some higher years for next year's levy, for instance, when will the pandemic years, specifically economic impacts from 2020, when will those come into the 6-year rolling average and perhaps moderate to some extent the levy growth? If that could be included in the answer as well, that'd be helpful.
I can jump in there, Matt. It's a year behind, so essentially they'll take the 2020 calendar year based on 20 filings in 2021 for that new year, and then they'll drop off the prior year from that, and then it'll adjust every year after that. As the mayor said, yes, we're dropping off the last of the downturned years. The projection so far is either a flat or some growth in that rate for the pandemic, which we're happy to hear. We won't know that number until August, so we get that fairly late in the budget process, and we'll update you on that and what the historic numbers have been. And as the mayor said, these are all projections to push out because of the effective dates of the annexation. We did discuss these growth rates and kind of pick the middle of the road number on both of those. And as the mayor said, one is the growth in the assessed value, which Monroe County and Bloomington has seen fairly good growth. We've only had one down year, I think. Even during the last recession, there was 1 year that it went down slightly. Other than that, it's grown very well over the past 6, 7, 8 years. And based on, what we've seen as far as building permits and those kinds of things and the actual construction going on, we think that number is going to continue to rise, as well as the levy. And again, that levy rate is applied throughout the state. Every unit of government gets the exact same levy increase, regardless of how well the local area does. So we think that that's going to be a good number again for our 2022 budget, which is based on 2020, but 2021 tax filings. That makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
And then obviously any changes to the rates would either increase or decrease the impacts or projected revenues, both for us and on the overlapping units of government. So, we've tried to take a middle of the road approach. And again, they're projections. We won't know the actual impacts until the AVs are known and the levies are known. But we've tried to do our best to give a good example of what we think those are going to be.
I guess just a small follow-up, and that's very helpful to kind of hear a little bit about the underlying assumptions and how conservative or liberal you think they are. Is it safe to say, based on your remarks, Mr. Underwood, that even if the projections turn out to be off by, let's say a percentage point in the case of the levy or a few percentage points in the case of the AV growth, you don't feel like that would meaningfully necessarily change the picture in terms of kind of the decision-making framework for how we would pursue this process? It wouldn't, if a couple of assumptions were different, or it turns out a little different in reality, it doesn't entirely undermine the case that's been built or something like that.
I don't believe that it would. And if you, in the fiscal plans themselves, we kind of give a min and a max on revenues and expenditures. So you do kind of get that range of what we're looking at there as well. But in either one of those scenarios or anything in between, we feel comfortable that we'll be able to provide the services and that we'll have sufficient revenues to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Flaherty. Do we have any further question from council on the general presentation? Councilmember Volin.
I believe Councilmember Scambolery has yet to ask a question, so I'll defer to her.
Thank you. First round, Councilmember Scambolery.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Stricker, could I trouble you to put up your last slide? I think it was closing thoughts or summary thoughts.
Give me one moment.
And in particular, when we get there, I want to make sure I understand the impact of the fire protection districts and how those fit into this. If I'm understanding correctly, Richland and Salt Creek would both come in and be protected by Bloomington Fire, but the others wouldn't?
Correct.
Okay. Can you talk through just that first bullet again? I want to make sure I understand what's happening.
Let me jump in too and say as well, it would only be those areas of the township that we would be annexing. The other areas of those townships would remain in whatever area. I think that they contract with City of Ellettsville for fire protection in Richland. So whatever areas are not annexed would continue to receive service in the fashion they're currently doing today.
Okay, and so part of Richland Township would be served by Ellettsville Fire Department. Part of Richland Township would be served by Bloomington Fire Department.
That's correct. And that's the case today, like in Bloomington Township and Perry, where there's Perry City and Perry County, the fire protection is provided by different groups. So it's not unusual to see that.
Okay, got it. And then in particular, can you go over the bullet point 3 there? I want to make sure I want to understand that.
I'll let Tim go into the detail, but essentially what we tried to analyze was over the period of time that we're talking about, what would be the impacts due to our piece of the annexation and what would be the impacts of the growth in the rate for the Monroe Fire Protection District. And essentially it boils down to their rate is around 39 cents and our rate's around 12.5 cents. So it impacts the increase in the rates, the levies, and the tax cap. So we've tried to anticipate what would that be if we provided the fire protection versus the Monroe County Fire Protection District.
Yeah, and then just to kind of expound upon what Jeff said, it gets deeply mathematical. Essentially, what we're showing, you know, that the tax cap impacts would be 83% lower. It boils down to what percentage of the annexed parcels are close enough to the tax cap percentage to be cut off, to where any further increase in the rate is just going to be tax cap loss, if that makes sense. So that 24 plus cent difference, 26 cent difference between the city rate and the fire protection district rate is enough to cause a greater percentage of parcels that would be annexed to be over that cap.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Scambolari, just to expound also on that third bullet point there, did you, with regard to ISO ratings are a measure of number of components of a fire department's capability. And the lower the rating, the better. The city of Bloomington currently has the second best rating as a 2, and the fire protection district is currently rated as a 4.
And those are figures that have the potential to lower a homeowner's fire insurance rates, for example.
That's correct. In Richland and Salt Creek townships, not anywhere else, as the service will continue to be provided by the district in those other townships.
Got it. Thank you all for your patience with those questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Scambolari. I do believe Councilmember Boland is next, and then Councilmember Piedmont Smith, and then Councilmember Smith, if I have it correctly.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of follow-ups to questions from other members. So first, so if a person 65 or older has a home worth more than $200,000, do they only get a tax break on the first $200,000? Or do they simply, like if they have a $250,000 house, they pay tax on $250,000 value, or just on the $50,000 above the first 200?
I'll do my best to answer that. Steve or Tim may have some input here, but I think you're simply ineligible for the over 65 credit if the assessed value of your home exceeds $200,000. Now, the state legislature has periodically updated that figure and increased it appropriately. So that may continue to happen, but I think that's just a cutoff point, Councilmember Volman.
Thank you. That's good. The other follow-up question was just now what Councilor Scambolari asked about. So you've got a parcel in the city that's been annexed, but it's served by the fire protection district, and they're eligible for tax caps. which taxing entity wins out in that, like, in other words, if I guess I don't get how tax caps work if there's a conflict like that.
And Mike can follow up in case I say this incorrectly. If they're currently served by the Monroe County Fire Protection District, they will continue to be served by that district after annexation. If they get taken over or get brought into the district prior to annexation, they would stay with the Monroe County Fire Protection District, and Philip or Mike can talk about
But that's what I mean is about the revenue. In other words, if they were brought in, if they're served by the Fire Protection District, they're paying a 38-cent rate as opposed to a 12-cent rate that we would charge.
That's correct.
They're eligible for tax caps. Like, whose revenue gets reduced?
It's pro rata. It's essentially pro rata. That's what we call the circuit breaker credit. And that's really the calculation that Tim was doing in his report to show that's the circuit breaker tax impact credit to all of the taxing units.
Okay. I've got another question, but I can hold it for others. Thank you all.
Thank you. And before we go to Councilmember Piedmont Smith, I will just ask those that are answering questions to please identify yourself. I'm not so sure all of our listeners are watching and just maybe listening. So thank you. Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes, when we first discussed annexation in 2017, and I want to thank the city clerk for forwarding those minutes, we talked about what legally defines an urbanized area. And so how, we're trying to understand better how the city administration decided on the initial boundaries of the initial proposal. Can somebody speak to how an urbanized area is defined and what in the legal system, does something have to be defined as an urbanized area to be annexed? Can somebody delve into that for me, please?
I can maybe help answer it. And I will, there's urbanization is something that's, if you look in the cases that address annexation going back 80 years, they talk about a preference for municipalities to annex, or when a municipality is annexing urbanized areas, there's more deference and a preference that the municipality be allowed to proceed with it. That doesn't mean that you can only annex areas that are urbanized. And in fact, now in the process, urbanization really isn't a direct issue unless you get into a remonstrance, which doesn't necessarily always occur in an annexation. But if you do get into a remonstrance, and I think when we talked about this in 2017, it was in that context, there is the municipality can either annex urbanized territory, or you can annex areas that are needed and can be used for the municipality's development in the reasonably near future. The legislature has defined in a remonstrance process urbanized, which there are lots of elements to a remonstrance trial, and there are lots of shifting burdens of proof. So this really oversimplifies things. But an urbanized area in a remonstrance process is defined as three for residential areas, 3 persons per acre, zoned commercial business for commercial business or industrial use, or 60% subdivided. So that's how they define urbanized. There's different paths you can go down, but that is one of the paths in a remonstrance trial. It is not, though, a requirement that territory actually be urbanized in order to annex it. It's only an issue if you get into a remonstrance.
So did you say 60% subdivided?
Correct, yes.
Okay, but I understand these are just guidelines in case of remonstrance and not requirements. Correct. Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, President Sims. Following up on Mr. Volan's ask about the amount of how much a house is worth and whether the person's going to be eligible for the circuit breaker and protect them on fixed income. Do we know how many parcels are out there in annexation world that are going to be affected related to, somebody who's 65 or has a disability and their assessed value is over 200,000 or under 200,000, so we know the whole population. Do we know how that's going to shake out?
I'll kind of maybe start off, Steve Unger, and Tim can jump in. Reedy Financial did a parcel by parcel analysis where every property owner is able to go and see what the projected impact is based on the assumptions that he had talked about earlier, to determine what the projected impact is going to be on their taxes and other offsets. And I believe in doing that analysis, they identified in that parcel by parcel analysis, they identified properties that are already receiving the 65 credit, the 65 and over credit. So I think that is available if Tim wants to confirm.
And I will just comment as well, Steve. I've received, when individuals have called to ask what the property impact will be on their parcel, or in some cases parcels that they own in the annexation areas, it's pretty easy to identify those individual parcels where somebody has filed the over 65 paperwork with the auditor, and so they're eligible for that credit. You can identify those right away. I have not gone through, Councilmember Smith, and counted the total number of over 65 parcels. It is not an inconsequential number, but I don't know what the total number is in the annexation areas of eligible taxpayers who are receiving that credit.
Yeah, I just wondered if we had a percentage of the population that is going to be eligible, or the ones that are going to be not eligible.
Mr. Stricker might be able to comment on whether or not we could obtain that data. I don't know about who could be eligible, but we can tell who has filed the appropriate paperwork to receive the credit already.
Okay. And anything you want to say about that, Mr. Stricker? Thanks, Mr. Rooker.
Yes. So the database that Steve mentioned earlier, it does track actual 2020 tax bills. So what we can do, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I can give you a number of the parcels that did claim the over 65 deduction as of 2020.
Okay, and does the database tell how many people that are 65 and older or have disability will not be able to claim that because their assessed value is over 200,000?
Yeah, so that calculation is built into the projections, but again, it's the projections. Now, we could give you the number based on the assumptions that we discussed earlier.
Okay, well, if you will you send that along to the council if you when you have a chance?
Yeah, would you just like the parcel count, just the final total count?
I would like the parcel count and the number of people that are going to be eligible or not eligible for it.
Okay, I don't know if I could get you the actual population amount, but I could get the number of parcels.
Okay. Please get me what you can. That would be great to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Vola.
Thanks again, Mr. President. So here's sort of a big question. The city prevailed at the Supreme Court in December, allowing this conversation to happen. The Supreme Court said that the state acted illegally. So why, if the state acted illegally, does that protect the area served by the Monroe Fire Protection District? I mean, in the same way that the state should never have been allowed to derail the annexation process, it seems that they should not have been allowed to incorporate areas that were actively being intended for annexation. What say you to that?
I will say that is a good question. It is something that we discussed quite a bit, actually. If you read the statutory language, affecting the fire districts, number one, it applies to, it's written more broadly the way that other statutes are written with respect to assessed values being a trigger for how they apply. It only applies if there is, the statute says it applies if the fire protection district has a net AV of $1 billion, I believe. And that's more how the legislature has written that type of legislation in the past. We thought, I think it was important to be clear on how we were reading that statute and who was going to be the fire provider there. It also reads that it applies based off of when the annexation ordinance is adopted, which is also consistent with how other legislation has been written with respect to annexation.
No, I appreciate that. But I mean, in this case, the state acted illegally to thwart, and then they wrote this law after, or I mean, it's almost like they did it so that they could write laws to prevent the impact of annexation, something that is also a right given by the state to municipalities, to cities. So I don't see why the formation of the fire protection district is even legal, or like if it isn't trumped by our initial effort to annex in 2017 that we're resuming now.
Yeah, it's a valid point, and it is a good argument, and I do think that there is an argument to be made there. If you read the fiscal plan, for those that have an opportunity to go through it, it assumes that we will not be the fire provider and that law applies to these areas that are annexed. But it also outlines how, if the city is allowed or a determination is made that statute does not apply or is invalid or is illegal, that we are ready, willing, and able to provide fire service to all of the annexation areas, which is really what you need to do in a fiscal plan, is make a commitment that you will, and are able to provide municipal services, capital and non-capital services to the annexation areas, consistent with how you provide them within the city now. So we did think that it was important, if it ultimately were determined that statute was invalid, that we can and will provide fire protection to those areas.
Well, so then I guess the big follow-up question to the administration is there any automatic review, or maybe it's to anybody who's on this call, is there an automatic review of the validity of that statute, or does the city have to sue?
I think it could come up in one of two ways. Either the city or someone else files a lawsuit against the state, similar to they've done in the past, or it could come up in a remonstrance trial, or there are processes later on where you could get in. It could be raised probably through the tax courts, but that's a whole another issue in process. But I think without somebody raising it in some form of litigation, or an agreement being reached between the parties, I don't know that there's an automatic review.
Anyone else have a thought on that, or because I appreciate that answer. If anybody else had any thought, I'm happy to hear it.
I would just say it's complicated, and we've tried to approach this in the way that's most practical, which is we have to pick a direction and go that way, and if it changes, we're ready to change with it. But we didn't want to have uncertainty through the process. I think we needed to choose a way to go forward.
Well, I think what you did was the correct way to address both possibilities, and I appreciate that. I just didn't know if there was any kind of automatic judicial review of that subsequent action that happened only as a result of the illegal action taken by the General Assembly.
And this is Mayor Hamilton again. I don't think so, as Mr. Unger said. One other point I did want to make is, of course, fire jurisdictions may contract to provide the aid for another. because of efficiencies and others. And one of the factors is that this annexation, if it goes forward, gives us some time, some years to do that, to identify ways most efficiently to provide fire services by mutual contract among different entities.
Thank you. Very good. That's all. No further questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Bowling. Do we have any further questions from council members? Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes, thank you, President Sims. I wanted to ask about water and sewer hook-on costs. So, of course, the City of Bloomington Utilities does provide service to people outside the city limits currently, albeit at a higher rate. But can somebody review for me if a residential homeowner, if their property is part of an annexation area, they're annexed, but they don't currently have city sewer or water, what would they have to do both in the actions and what would they have to pay in order to get on city water? I mean, you know, there may be other circumstances that need to be considered, but could somebody give me an idea of that, how that would work?
I'm looking for a corporate counsel.
I will weigh in. I know you had this question, Isabel, and we talked to Vic Kelson about it. And I'm pulling up what his response was. I'll just read it. For new residential customers, the one-time connection fee for water is $1,533, and for sewer, it's $2,775. The service areas for water utilities were settled between the City of Bloomington Utilities and CBU's wholesale customers years ago. The new water customer will seek a connection based on the service area in which the property is located. CBU will extend service only to areas within its service area. Some customers in the proposed annexation areas are presently served by CBU. Some are served by other utilities who are CBU's wholesale customers, or they have a well. None of those arrangements will change except in the case of replacing a well, in which case the utility will be determined according to the service area map. In the event that an irresolvable dispute arose between CBU and a wholesale customer regarding the boundary, the IURC would adjudicate.
So if I can try to translate that. And that just deals with water, I think. So CBU provides drinking water to everybody in the area. We do it either directly to retail customers or we do it through wholesale contract providers. And what Ms. Guthrie just said was we have boundaries set with those wholesale customers that they get to provide all the retail customers in their area, and CBU provides the retail water service in all the other areas. And if you're not currently on retail water service, whichever area you're in is who you would go to get the hook on for drinking water, get off a well, for example. Sewer service is different. We don't provide sewer service. CBU does not provide sewer service to everybody in the area. There are a number of other providers, and many people are on septics. And hooking onto the sewer system, the shortest answer I can give, I think it'd be accurate, and others can correct me, is it actually doesn't make a big difference in hooking on whether you're inside the city or not inside the city. The rate may be different, but providing that service is really a question of fiscal ability, topographical reach, and it's not a dramatic difference whether you're inside the city or not. There are people inside the city who are not on sewer service for various reasons. And there are many people outside the city who are on sewer service. So the annexation doesn't dramatically change the way you get on sewer service. It does have an inside the city and outside the city rate a bit, but maybe, I don't know if that's entirely correct, but it's close, I think.
So if somebody is on a street that has no sewer line,
right,
then they can't pay that $2,775 and get sewer hookup because there's no line to their home, right?
That would take the system putting in a sewer main to serve a bunch of customers, and that's a transaction that has to be done. It isn't done one by one. That's right. And
So that would be a negotiation with the city, or how?
yes, and with CBU, and I think the point I'd make, and please, Mr. Rooker, help me out if I'm squandering or wandering around, but the point is that same question, if you're on a street with no sewer, whether you're in the city or outside the city, you're going to have the same discussion with CBU about that.
And just to Michael Rooker, city attorney, just to parrot that, I think Mayor Hamilton is correct in what he said, but Councilmember Piedmont Smith, there can be other considerations as well. Of course, sewers are gravity fed. And so oftentimes there are engineering barriers to service in particular geographic spaces. So there are lots of considerations that would have to be taken into account. It really would be case specific.
And then the monthly fees, are those less for people within the city limits?
For wastewater, there is a rate differential. And so wastewater rates are lower for individuals who live within the municipal boundaries of the city of Bloomington.
Drinking water, no difference.
That's correct.
Drinking water, no difference, as long as there's no wholesaler.
The wholesale has their own rate structure. That's right.
So, President Sims, I'm sorry, I'm almost done. So if somebody currently gets their water through a wholesaler, when they're annexed, would they automatically start getting their water directly from CBU?
No change.
Okay.
Is that right, Mr. Unger? I see you wanted to maybe.
Yeah, that's correct. Annexation does not change the utility service territories, except to the extent, and I'll give you one example. And there are rules that govern the extension of mains to unserved areas. And for example, if the 3-year revenue from that property is going to exceed the cost of the main, then the city, in the city's boundaries, is required to extend it for free. But you are not required to do that outside of your boundaries. So there are rules that deal with the extension of sewer and water mains. The water rules have always applied to the city. There was a change in the statute a few years ago that expanded it to municipal sewer utilities as well. And there are recoupment functions for that. And there's a 3-year revenue allowance and subsequent connector fees and things that can go into the extending of those facilities. But generally you would need to extend those to areas within your boundaries. But if these areas weren't annexed, the municipality is not required to provide service to those areas unless they have another agreement where they've agreed to do so.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions on the general presentation? I will remind my colleagues that there will be an opportunity from council members to ask further questions and then have final comments before we're done with this. So do we have any further questions from council members? Okay, seeing none, I believe the city administration now has I'm sorry, Councilmember Flaherty.
I think you were going to announce the next steps, but I just wanted to note that it will require a motion to introduce and read each of these resolutions by title and synopsis as we go. They do need to be properly introduced and read at some point here. So now that we've disposed of a general overview presentation, we can do that sequentially.
Is that prior to public comment?
Yes. It's the introduction and reading by the clerk by title and synopsis only will serve as the introduction for each of those resolutions and an opportunity for additional resolution-specific presentation or questions. Following those 8 introductions and resolution-specific presentations or questions, we would move to public comment on the resolutions as a whole, though people are welcome to speak to any of them. Does that make sense?
It does. And I do believe the next thing I should say is we have legislation for second reading. Is that
Mr. President, point of order?
Yes.
Is it possible for us to vote on the 8 resolutions to introduce them with one vote? Can they be, since they're also very closely related, does each one have to be voted on separately?
I'll defer to Mr. Lucas or a parliamentarian. I think I asked that question earlier, trying to be expeditious, but I'm not so sure if we can. Mr. Lucas?
I believe the council should follow its normal practice of moving to introduce each item and proceeding to any additional presentation from the administration, followed by council questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Flaherty.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that Resolution 2109 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
Second, it's been properly moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll? I apologize for ordinance 21-09. I'm sorry, resolution 21-09.
Thanks. Councilmember Volin,
Yes.
Rosenbarger,
Yes. Did you hear me? Yes.
Councilmember Scambolari, I'm actually not hearing you, so I'm going to move on to Councilmember Sims and come back to you.
Yes. I didn't hear you call my name. Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Sims,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Danberg,
Yes.
and Rawo.
Yes.
Thank you, and that passes 9-0. Will the clerk please read?
Resolution 2109, updating Resolution 1716, an updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana. Wow. Southwest, a Bloomington annexation area. The synopsis is as follows. This resolution adopts the updated fiscal plan for municipal annexation version 4.0, Fiscal Plan 4.0, prepared for the annexation of the Southwest A Bloomington annexation area depicted in Exhibit A to Ordinance 1709. Fiscal Plan 4.0 is an updated version of the fiscal plan adopted by the Council on March 29, 2017, and outlines the proposed plans for the extension of capital and non-capital services in this area, with the understanding that Fiscal Plan 4.0 is subject to further amendment as part of the ongoing process of annexation review by the city. The next step in this ongoing process will be the conducting of public hearings on the proposed annexation on Wednesday, August 4th, 2021.
Thank you. And my notes now say that the city administration has an opportunity to address resolutions, one resolution at a time. Do we have any further presentations or addressing resolution 21-09 from administration?
No.
No, we do not intend to speak on any individually. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Mr. Parliamentarian, I'm sorry, I do have a question. Council, if they have questions, it's only after presentation. So if there's no presentations, there will be no questions on individual resolutions until we get to the end, where we still have that opportunity.
I think we could go either way on that. I guess the motion, let me see. I don't know if Mr. Lucas wanted to weigh in either.
I believe the motion was structured so that if council members had, Council Attorney Stephen Lucas, the motion I believe was worded to allow council member questions after each resolution was introduced. So I think now would be the appropriate time to take questions on this particular resolution one at a time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from council on resolution 2109? Seeing none, Mr. Parliamentarian, is it proper to move on to the next resolution before we go to public comment?
Yes, I'd be happy to make that motion.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I move that Resolution 2110 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved in second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Nicole, I'm not getting your audio. I think I'm up next.
No, you're not. And then I called for Councilmember Rosenbarger. Can you hear me?
Hear you now.
Okay. And was that yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Scambaluri,
Yes.
Councilmember Sims,
Yes.
Councilmember Flaherty,
Yes.
Councilmember Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Sandberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Rallo,
Yes.
Councilmember Volin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It passes 9-0. Will the clerk please read?
Resolution 2110, updating Resolution 1717, an updated fiscal plan and policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana, Southwest B, Bloomington Annexation Area. The synopsis is as follows. This resolution adopts the updated fiscal plan for municipal annexation version 4.0, Fiscal Plan 4.0, prepared for the annexation of the Southwest B Bloomington annexation area depicted in Exhibit A to Ordinance 1710. Fiscal Plan 4.0 is an updated version of the fiscal plan adopted by this Council on March 29, 2017, and outlines the proposed plans for the extension of capital and non-capital services in this area, with the understanding that Fiscal Plan 4.0 is subject to further amendment as part of the ongoing process of annexation review by the city. The next step in this ongoing process will be the conducting of public hearings on the proposed annexation on Wednesday, August 4th, 2021.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Okay. Seeing none, Councilmember Flaherty.
Mr. President, I move that Resolution 2111 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
Thank you. Been properly moved in second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Okay. And Councilmember Scambaluri, can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll start with you, Councilmember Scambaluri.
Oh, yes, again.
And Councilmember Sims,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Sandberg,
Yes.
Rallo,
Yes.
Volin,
Yes.
and Rosenbarger.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That passes 9-0.